Call of Duty Ghosts is an interesting game to say the least. Historically, it was a game that wasn't exactly received with all that much praise at the time of its inception, due to what was seen as a lack of ambition. Even going back to older reviews on Metacritic and even Steam, you can easily find people saying that the franchise was stale and that the story of Ghosts was forgettable. These are things that would ultimately affect the game in a somewhat negative light. See, even with Activision raking in over $1 billion back during the game's 2013 launch, Ghosts' numbers were considered to be troubling as sales would go down from the previous year's entry, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. However, as years would go by, things would change as more and more people would go on to consider the game to be an underrated entry into the series. Published by Activision and developed by Infinity Ward, Call of Duty Ghosts would release on the PlayStation 3, the Wii U, Xbox 360, and on Windows on November 5th, 2013. Additionally, Ghosts would be the first Call of Duty game to release on the 8th generation of consoles, having a PlayStation 4 release in North America on November 15th, 2013, and in Europe on the 29th of the same month. The Xbox One would also have a release as well on November 22nd, 2013. Ghosts would ship with a pre-order bonus and also have a couple different editions. Starting with the pre-order incentives, Ghosts would include a Ghost Mask DLC for the game's multiplayer and the freefall dynamic map. Additionally, those who would pre-order the game from GameStop would also receive additional things such as an in-game code for Call of Duty Ghost-themed weapon camo for usage in Black Ops 2, as well as a double-sided poster with the game's cover art being used or the skull logo on the other side. As for the special editions, beginning with the $120 Hardened Edition, this would release with a steelbook case version of the game, as well as a season pass, a paracord strap, and some bonus digital content, which included a patch, card, and a background for the multiplayer, along with an official soundtrack. And lastly, there was a Prestige Edition as well, which cost $200. This came with everything included in the Hardened Edition, but also included a water-resistant camera that was able to capture footage in 1080p. Since I won't really be looking at the multiplayer too much in this video, as most of it will be based around the campaign, I'll just mention a few quick things about the DLC for the multiplayer. The DLC includes map packs for the PvP and Extinction game mode, as well as a number of character and weapon skins. Backing up a bit and going a little further into Extinction mode, Infinity Ward would also change things up with Ghosts and offer something a bit different than Spec Ops from Modern Warfare 2 and 3 and Zombies from the Treyarch entries. This mode has you fighting cryptids and using a drill to destroy hives. It's a nice addition and something to do, though I'm not entirely sure why they never bothered to continue with this game mode after Ghosts. Anyways, with everything out of the way here, it's time for a recap of Call of Duty Ghosts. If you don't like major spoilers or can't be bothered to listen to me drone on, feel free to skip ahead to the provided timestamp if you're only interested in hearing my thoughts and other bits about the game. In the same vein as other entries in the series, you play as a number of different characters throughout the campaign of Call of Duty Ghosts. However, for a majority of the missions, you're playing as Logan Walker, who tends to be accompanied by his older brother, David, who's better known as Hesh. Each mission is also preceded by briefing narrations that help set the stage for things to come as well. At the start of the game's initial mission, titled Ghost Stories, we learn about the origins of Ghosts from Logan and Hesh's father, Elias, who basically tells us how the Ghosts came to be. After this, we see Hesh and Elias sitting near a campfire in some woods. Hesh is skeptical about the truthfulness of the story, not believing it, but Elias says it's true. The group then heads off back to their home. However, a few tremors start to happen along the way. Realizing that there might be something wrong, they find out that there's something up with the Odin space station. From here, chaos starts occurring in the streets, with the trio now knowing that the tremors aren't earthquakes. Hesh and Logan then split off from Elias, who goes to get a truck as the two continue home. As they make their exit, the screen fades to white and we see the scene change to events happening 15 minutes earlier. At this point, we're now playing as someone referred to as Baker, who is in outer space near the Odin space station. We overhear that the Odin weapon had a successful test fire ping before seeing a ship in the background, where we're informed by Specialist Kira Mosley, who's the other person with us, that that's our ride and we're to debrief a new crew. Returning to the ship, we see that it gets attacked. Heading through the station now, Mosley knocks into a soldier, causing him to lose his gun. We fight for control of the gun, blasting the dude right in the head in the process. Right after this, Mosley yells yells to Houston Control that the Federation had broken a truce. This is led by the pair going to make sure that the Federation can't take control of Odin, which is eventually scuttled. Shortly after, the pair are knocked out of the space station after a part of it blows up. Mosley and Baker survive this, however, and then head to Odin with the intention of disabling it. Firing at the fuel, they blow it up, which ends up killing Kira in the process. We then hear Houston saying that they lost signal with the two as we see them begin to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, along with Odin. The scene then fades to white and we cut back to Logan and Hesh, who ran through the door earlier. While this happens, we see a big old boom happen as the streets begin to crumble. Logan and Hesh then run to find their dad as a whole lot of mayhem happens. While trying to escape all the pandemonium, they see a tanker truck coming out of nowhere and exploding. This causes Logan to get knocked out. Coming to, hearing Hesh with Elias calling out to them. Hesh and Elias carry Logan to a nearby truck and then they head out where we see a bunch of background carnage and the superimposed Call of Duty Ghost title popping up. After this sequence, we then see a scene with Hesh explaining how the Federation would come to power after the great energy-producing deserts were destroyed. This event caused all the countries that rely on them to collapse as a result. We're then told that the Federation united South America, which made its way north in its conquest, leading them to the United States. Surviving the Odin hijacking, the US was able to cause a stalemate fighting back. The next mission, titled Brave New World, takes place in Los Angeles, California. At the start, we learn that 10 years had passed since the intro level. Hesh and Logan are contacted by Private Roper, who informs them that Dallas had been overran the previous night and that Command wants another sweep of something called the Wall. After this, their companion dog, Riley, is alerted by something. The two check it out, however, it inevitably ends up only being a deer. After this, they regroup with another team. This eventually leads to Hesh and Logan fighting some Federation soldiers after witnessing some people get executed. Hearing that the Federation is attacking the Wall after, Hesh and Logan rush to help defend it. After all of this is said and done, Logan gets on the back of an MATV and is taken to Fort Santa Monica. Once there, Hesh and Logan make a report to Elias. At this point, Hesh and Logan are informed that they're being sent to No Man's Land, which is located outside of the Wall. Their task is to link up with a recon team to gather intel on the enemy. Hesh asks which part of the No Man's Land they're being sent to, finding out that they're being sent back home. This cuts to a scene where we're then told about No Man's Land, which is a span of destruction caused by Odin between Los Angeles and San Diego. The mission No Man's Land starts us off taking control of Riley, who we get to attack some dudes. After this, we then go off to gather intel, leading us to discover that the area has tons of soldiers. Not long after being told this, Logan and Hesh make their way back to their old home where Hesh picks up his shoddy. They go to exit the house and we get to see just how bad the aftermath of the Odin attack really was. Continuing on, we sync with Riley again, and then after, we get this breach sequence where Riley busts through a window, prompting a slow motion sequence where we drop a bunch of dudes. Not long after, Hesh and Logan get to a spot where they find that the Federation is digging through some wreckage and then come across a massive enemy camp. Logan syncs up with Riley again, eventually getting to an area where they find a dude named Rourke with a ghost captive named Ajax. The enemy then takes the ghost and we overhear that he's being taken to a Firebase Charlie and that something called Operation Coming is to proceed. Logan then gets Riley to a rally point where they all regroup and then they continue on. The next scene has Riley rushing off where we see some wolves attack. So as you can see, Logan runs out of bullets and then this dude Merrick comes out of nowhere, tackling a wolf that's about to maul Logan's face off and then proceeds to drop him. But anyways, now grouped up with Merrick and Keegan, Logan and Hesh go to reach Firebase Charlie. This level ends on the outskirts of a stadium where we're informed that Ajax doesn't have a long time. The next scene has Hesh talking about the ghosts who we're told were heading to San Diego to find Ajax. Hesh then says they were determined to become ghosts, and then the mission Struck Down begins. During the opening, we control a remote sniper, seeing Ajax being moved by some soldiers. After this, the group then tags some convoy trucks with explosives and then heads to a nearby truck to go and save Ajax. Driving towards the gate, Logan blows off the charges, and then Keegan rams the truck into the station and then crashes through a gate right after. We go mow more enemies down, making it to a room where we then take control of the remote sniper once again. After shooting some soldiers, the group breaches into the room, discovering that Ajax is gone. Keegan tries to get some more information from a survivor. However, before the guy could spill the beans, Riley picks up Ajax's scent. The group goes on from here to another room where Ajax is presumed to be, and we get another breaching sequence. They take the dudes out, and we discover Ajax is in bad shape. Ajax tells the group that Rourke had been targeting ghosts and then dies. They then find Rourke's kill list, hearing enemy radio chatter, and then are prompted to make their escape. At this moment, we once again take control of the remote sniper, dropping more dudes before finally clearing enough enemies to escape. Before the level ends, however, we learn that there's a full division moving in on Santa Monica, which is where we're going next. The next scene has Hesh talking about Rourke hunting ghosts, with the group now heading into a battlefield to find their father. The next level, Homecoming, we're back at Fort Santa Monica where we see chaos ensuing. Hesh and Logan then take a team to a beachfront. Logan goes on to take control of a remote drone, thinning enemy forces in the process. During the battle, Logan then gets blasted down to a beach, and then the group fights through some trenches. Logan and Hesh continue searching for their father after. However, Logan ends up getting attacked by a dude. Riley comes and attacks the guy, getting slapped away before Hesh comes out of nowhere and drops the guy. This leads to the roof of the place being blown up with some ghosts bursting into the room, who end up saving Hesh, Logan, and Riley in the process. Now on board a helicopter, Hesh says that they need to go back to find their dad, and then we see an unnamed ghost tell them that their dad isn't there anymore. Unmasking himself, we see that the ghost was actually Elias. This is the moment where Hesh and Logan officially become ghosts. Before any celebrations could happen, Merrick asks what they're going to do about Rourke. This leads to us discovering that Rourke knows how the ghosts operate because he too was once a ghost as well. The next scene has Elias talking about how 12 years ago, Federation leader General Almagro was demanding for all US-born citizens to be imprisoned or executed. We find out here that Rourke was able to convince Washington to send in ghosts to get Almagro. This scene here pretty much pumps up Rourke to be like the greatest soldier in the existence of mankind. Anyways, in the mission Legends Never Die, we're playing as Elias. We're dropped with a battle taking place in Caracas, the capital of the Federation. Following Rourke through the combat zone, we're tasked with taking out some rocket launcher vehicles. However, before we could finish off the last one, it fires off a rocket, blowing up a dam and flooding the city. The team then runs through the streets and into a building to escape the water. Once at safer ground, Merrick says that they should call the mission off, but Rourke says ghosts have to finish their mission. After this, we fight some more dudes on a rooftop which collapses, causing Elias and Rourke to get swept away into the water. Fortunately, they're able to make it to safety and head through a building after. After getting to higher ground, Merrick contacts Rourke and Elias, saying that they have eyes on Almagro, but they're under fire west of a hotel. Rourke and Elias then go to regroup with Merrick. After all this, they rush off through a building, making it to a helicopter where some more dudes are dropped. We then see this slow motion sequence with Almagro punching Elias, which causes him to drop his gun. This leads to Rourke jumping on Almagro's back as he pulls out a gun. Elias then grabs a nearby gun and then drops Almagro, but the helicopter crashes afterwards, leading to another major event.
Break it apart! We gotta move now! What are we doing here, Elias? We can't save him! Elias! We're too heavy! You gotta let him go! Elias!
So as you can see, Elias tries to hold on to Rourke, but ends up letting go in order to save himself and the other ghosts from being swept up into the rushing waters below. In the next scene, we hear Elias saying that they searched for weeks to try to find Rourke's body. However, they were pulled out before they could actually find him, and Rourke was declared MIA. At this point, we learn that the Federation had somehow turned Rourke, and since Rourke still has the determination of a ghost, he won't stop at anything to take the group down. The group is then led to search for a man named Victor Ramos in Caracas. In the next mission, titled Federation Day, we're back to playing as Logan. During the opening here, him and Keegan are overlooking a building as some fireworks go off. Logan then uses an optic scanner to identify Ramos. After this, they use zipline launchers to get across to go and capture the high-value target. Not long after, the team goes on to break into the building in order to upload a virus to the power system. After this, they head back to scale the side of the building and kill the power in the process in order to gain access to the lower section to find the HVT. But first, Hesh and Logan go to kill the power to an elevator in order to make sure that the target doesn't escape. This leads to the group being discovered as they head back to the ropes, scaling down the building, causing all sorts of chaos, detonating explosives in the process. After this, the group heads to an office that Hesh goes on to push Ramos into. They ask where Rourke is, and he tells them that his location is in an encrypted file. This leads to Rourke showing up on a monitor behind them, and the scene plays out where Rourke says he was left to die in the city. The whole thing ends up being a setup with some explosives being set off, and the group goes to escape the building, eventually crashing through a window where they use some parachutes to make it out of the building in order to head to a rally point. The next scene here shows that Ramos' laptop was actually able to provide information as to Rourke's whereabouts. We're then told that Rourke is to actually be taken alive. The following level, Birds of Prey, has you mostly going around in a helicopter blasting away at stuff while switching to Logan during some sections. The team is eventually led to the location of Rourke here where they're able to secure him. The next scene here explains how Rourke was broken.
There are ancient tribes deep in the Amazon who have perfected the art of torture over hundreds of years. The Federation embraced this heritage, enhancing it with more sophisticated methods. They kept Rourke in a hole for months, feeding him food mixed with the poisons of exotic plants. As they broke down his body, they went to work on his mind. When his mind broke, they went to work on his soul. They rebuilt what was left, twisting him to their purposes. The process was excruciating and exacting. Rourke was their ghost now. The perfect weapon to use against us.
As you can see, Rourke was essentially tortured into becoming an enemy of the ghosts. After this, we see Rourke being grilled for information on the dig site in San Diego, which leads to a scene of him being rescued by the Federation.
If you make it out of this, kid, come find me. There's always room for one more.
So yeah, Rourke escapes and Logan falls out of the destroyed plane, parachuting to safety. After this, we then begin the level The Hunted. Here, we see Logan smack into some trees with his parachute getting stuck, which leads to a section where Logan has to use stealth to get to a crash site. Logan manages to regroup with the rest of the team, who go on to find a river in order to exfil. Along the way, they see a rocket launch and then go on to be spotted by a helicopter, which leads them to have to make their escape through the jungle as it's blasted with rockets. Logan and the group gets away by jumping down a waterfall where they're picked up by a boat, which also ends the level. The scene after this explains that the missile they saw launched in Yucatan wasn't actually directed at the US. This leads to the team being sent into a Federation facility in the Andes to find out where it was being sent. The next mission here, titled Clockwork, has the group disguising as Federation soldiers in order to infiltrate. The group gets to a checkpoint, taking dudes out, and then stopping a vehicle in order to gain access to the location. The group manages to get in after power's cut, going on to bug the base in order to get the drop on the enemy the moment their powers are restored. After this, they breach a door, allowing them to advance to a data center. Once there, Hesh goes to download data while the group sets up shop in order to defend from an enemy attack. After the data is secured, the group then goes on to make their escape via a truck. While driving out, they discover the collected data shows kill estimates for cities across the United States. Shortly after, however, they're stopped by some soldiers who ask them to take their masks off, which causes the group to attack, thus causing some more chaos as they drive to an exfil point where a submarine smashes through some ice, ending the level. The next scene after this shows that it's believed that the Federation missile program is being developed in a factory near a port in Rio. This leads to the group being sent to make a diversionary attack by sinking the Federation's Atlas platform in the Drake Passage. In the next level, Atlas Falls, we're playing as Logan again, who blows up some charges in order to drop some targets. Logan then heads to the oil rig with the team while fighting to some pressure regulators. Logan goes to shut the regulators down and then continues topside, fighting to the command center. Once there, Logan is tasked with disabling water suppressors while Keegan overloads pumps in order to destroy the oil rig. This leads to some more mayhem as they all go to exfil via chopper as we watch the oil rig platform go boom. The scene after this shows that the Federation fleet was successfully lured away, but there was one more ship in their way. This leads to Keegan and Logan being tasked with sinking it in the mission into the deep. This mission is an underwater one, with the two being sent in to destroy an Aegis-class combat ship. The two eventually come across the ship while avoiding sonar blasts that hinder their progress. They then head to a sunken lighthouse where Logan uses a Proteus missile in order to take the ship out. This leads to them being tossed out of the lighthouse where Logan's knocked down and trapped as Keegan comes to his rescue. The two then are almost drilled by a helicopter when they see that the ship was successfully neutralized, and then they head to a rally point in order to escape. After doing all this, we see that phase 2 of the plan was to begin, which ends the level. The following scene here has Hesh wondering where Rourke was and what exactly was in the Federation's factory. The next level, End of the Line, we're back to playing as Logan again, who's joined by Merrick as they go to infiltrate the facility. The team heads inside, sweeping the area to a vault door leading to Black Zone. Once inside, they find rocket components. Not long after this, they come across satellite space-based weaponry where they capture images, discovering that the design is based on the Odin. The team then goes on from here to find data before the complex is leveled with a bombing run. They eventually go on to find the data before the room gets breached by the Federation, which leads them to have to fight to a parking lot to extract, escaping an onslaught. This leads to Hesh asking where the other satellites are, which inevitably leads to the level ending. During this next scene, we find out that the Federation reverse engineered the Odin to create their own weapons. We also find out here that Keegan is being sent to Colorado Springs and that they're all to meet at the Vegas safe house. The level Sin City begins with the group almost immediately being ambushed and captured by Federation soldiers. Coming to, we see Rourke shoot Logan, demanding to know where Keegan was. This leads to Rourke smashing Elias's face in as we break free of her bindings, grabbing Rourke's gun in the process, and well...
Oh, he's still got a little life in him. Didn't he ever tell you not to aim guns at people? They could go off. That's it. Just a little more. That way. Come on. Stop. Point it at Dad. Logan! Logan! Ooh, you got fire in you, kid. I like that. Risking your life to protect your captain. You could learn something from him, Elias. He's my son. Yeah? And he's gonna get to watch you die.
So as you can see, Elias is killed here. We see another time jump where Federation soldiers are about to kill Hesh before they're dropped by sniper fire, allowing the group to make an escape. This whole level is pretty much fighting on a location, eventually reaching the strip where they find Riley, who was able to avoid being captured by the Federation. It's at this moment, however, when Riley gets shot and the player is tasked with picking up and carrying Riley out of there as they go to extract. The next scene, Hesh explains what happens to ghosts who die and that the war is far from over. This is followed by us learning that the United States is going to send a carrier into Federation territory in order to gain ground so they could take their satellites. The next scene has Merrick give Logan a ghost mask, and then the level All or Nothing officially begins with the carrier being attacked by the Federation. This level has Logan on the defense while marking targets for an Osprey attack. Eventually, Logan is also tasked with targeting Federation gunships using a missile launcher as well. After all this, the carrier's blown up from a satellite strike, causing Hesh and Logan to have to make their escape. Once they get on board a helicopter, Hesh says that they need to join the main assault to take out a ground array or the war is over. The next scene here, we learn that there's an assault team heading to the Federation space station to take control of its orbital weapons. However, to make this possible, they need to go in and seize command of the Federation command center in order to launch a missile at the space station's early warning array. The next level, Severed Ties, begins with us taking control of the Badger Company's 2nd Tank Battalion. Honestly, we're pretty pretty much just blowing up airstrip defenses to allow Hesh and Logan to get to the Federation's launch control room. Anyways, once we switch back to Hesh and Logan, who drop into the place via helicopter, we head to the command center where Hesh updates missile trajectory, and we go on to launch a missile. After this, Hesh overhears a radio, finding out that Rourke is in the area, which leads to Logan and him going off and boarding a Federation train to find him, which ends this section, and leads to another, where we once again take control of the tank, going to take out anti-aircraft guns before the area is blown up with a missile. Once this is done, the tank is blown up, which leads to us having to rush to another, blowing up more stuff in order to escape. This level ends with us seeing the array getting blown up, and then we overhear that phase 2 of the mission will begin. This is where we now see that a team is being sent to the Federation space station as well. In the mission Lackey, we play as Sergeant Thompson. This level is another outer space section, but this time we're on the assault. We eventually go on to breach a control room, taking control of it and using the Federation weapons to eliminate their forces. After this, we hear a message from Merrick, who tells us to fire at the train that Logan and Hesh are on, which ends the level. The following scene has Hesh saying that they would stop Rourke no matter the cost, which immediately begins to level the Ghost Killer. The mission starts with Logan beating a dude up when Hesh tells a guy on a monitor that they're coming for Rourke, who is conveniently there to hear it. Anyways, Hesh and Logan go and fight up the train cars to get to the engine room. Once there, Hesh tells Merrick that if he hears the word checkmate, then he's to fire on the position. This leads to a breaching sequence with Logan and Hesh taking out some dudes before being launched right into Rourke in the aftermath. Rourke is able to fight his way out of this one as he grabs a hold of Logan and then shoots Hesh and then puts a gun to his head. Before he could kill him, however, Hesh says checkmate and the train gets blown up and launched into the water. After we regain control, we see this scene where Rourke goes to grab a gun, but his shot misses as he's smacked by Hesh with a fire extinguisher. Logan gets the gun, tries to fire at Rourke, but it has no bullets. Hesh tosses some bullets at us, and we get a button tap to grab some ammo, and then Logan reloads the gun. Hesh grabs a hold of Rourke, we fire a shot, which goes through both of them and cracks open a window, causing the room to become flooded. Logan grabs onto Hesh and makes an escape, swimming to shore where we see the two make it to safety, watching some Federation ships get blown up in the background, thus ending Call of Duty Ghosts. But wait, there's more. As Logan and Hesh watch the explosions rain down from the sky, one last scene happens.
Look at what you did. You're good. You'd have been a hell of a ghost. But that's not gonna happen. There ain't gonna be any ghosts. We're gonna destroy him together.
So as you could see, Rourke ends up being alive in the end as he drags away Logan after saying that they're gonna destroy the ghosts together. The game cuts to some credits after, however, there's one more scene after that shows a cage in the jungle, presumably showing Logan being broken down in the same way Rourke was before the game actually ends for real. And that, my friends, is Call of Duty Ghosts. Summarizing my thoughts on Call of Duty Ghosts, I have to say that the campaign aged pretty well. It has a lot of interesting moments, and honestly, I thought the introduction to the game was really strong too. There's no time wasted. You start the game and bam, everything goes downhill. And I'd also add that I found the space sequence to be pretty cool too. It's hard to expect that someone who you're just introduced to would die within a half hour of the game, but the way they do it, it's really strong and sets the tone for all of the things to come. The United States being a battleground isn't necessarily something new in the Call of Duty series either, since we saw it with Modern Warfare 2 and 3, but the way that it's done in Ghost feels a bit different, since it almost feels like America's on its heels more, with the time span between the events in the beginning to where we see the state of things in the second chapter, which takes place a decade later, versus how America is being attacked is portrayed in Modern Warfare games, where it's like, oh no, America's attacked, big mistake. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's crazy epic in Modern Warfare 2 and 3, but it feels like it's over in a flash. In Ghosts, they've lived with an enemy on the doorstep for years, which shows from the get-go, where we see a city that looks like it could be in a Fallout game. Call of Duty Ghosts gameplay is pretty much the same as other entries in the series too. That being said, there is some differences in the game versus other entries. For example, you have this little lean that you can do behind cover by aiming down the sights while this yellow arrow appears on the crosshairs. This allows you to shoot while staying in cover. You also have the dog,
an actual SEAL team service dog,
on some levels as well. You can use Raleigh to attack enemies, which is definitely something unique to the series. Other than that, it's about what you'd expect from a Call of Duty game. Shooting guns and taking in all of the high-octane cinematics. Every so often, you also get levels that exist more as a way to break up the monotony. This includes levels where you drive around in a tank blowing stuff up, or fly around dropping targets in a helicopter. Like I said though, there's some variety, but overall, if you've played any Call of Duty game before, Ghosts will feel very familiar. Even things like guns won't feel all that much different either. Something about them remind me of how they felt in Modern Warfare 3, the old one, not the new. You got a variety of stuff that won't be too surprising. There's pistols, submachine guns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, LMGs. So I don't think that there was too many weapons that I actually enjoyed picking up in the game, so there wasn't really all that many I could point to and give a lot of praise. However, I did like whenever the game's campaign would throw the L115 into levels. I don't know why, but I always preferred sniping in these campaigns, so I found it to be a lot more fun whenever I had these kinds of opportunities. Other than that, I kind of like the chainsaw LMG, but you didn't really see this one too often. In fact, I'm positive I only ever saw it on the last level. It felt beast and was fun to use too. Unfortunately, it was like a rarity item. I would also go on to say that the atmosphere in Call of Duty Ghosts is great too. Like I said previously, the game is essentially post-apocalyptic-y, so most levels feel like they pertain to that in some fashion. Take for example, the mission Sin City. When we finally get outside in this level, you can visibly see that the place succumbed to the elements with sand and debris all over. It really does look like something out of Fallout. And then other levels, like Brave New World, follow the same vibe as you travel through the ruins of California. I think even over a decade later, I could still applaud Infinity Ward for attempting to take one of their games in this direction. Definitely stands out when you put it side by side with other entries in the franchise. Audio is also another thing still solid in Ghosts. The voice acting is good. I won't say that it's my favorite in all the entries that I've played, but I still enjoyed it. Every performance is believable to help keep the player immersed in the campaign at least. But still, there's no characters that I'd say match up with the OG Ghost or anything, and since Logan, who you're mostly playing as, is a silent protagonist, most of the talking in the campaign comes from Hesh. What I will say though is that Rourke is definitely the most intriguing person in the game. The performance here is quite good, and honestly, he makes an interesting villain since you kind of wonder what his end goal is more and more as you make it through the game. The music in Ghosts is also pretty epic too. I won't say that it's the same level as Modern Warfare 2, but I did think it was still good. I liked Hope, which was the music used in the initial trailer for Call of Duty Ghosts. Nice track, still pretty nostalgic hearing it again too. I also like the track Clockwork as well. I have no idea why, but bits of it reminded me of Metal Gear Solid. Same goes for End of the Line. Strangely enough, the game was composed by David Buckley, who had apparently provided additional music for Metal Gear Solid 4 as well, so I guess that actually kind of makes sense. Either way, Ghosts has a good soundtrack and one that really highlights the quality towards making something special, but that's about it on this side of things. So what do I find wrong with Call of Duty Ghosts? Well, I'll start with something random. You see this? What the hell is this head bob? It's something that only happens in the game when you don't have a gun out, which is really weird. It's so disorienting and feels absolutely unnecessary. It feels like the player's head is detached from the body because of how awful it feels moving around. Honestly, it made these walking sections feel sickening, and I couldn't get through them quick enough. Every time I had to go through one of these sections, I felt like I was gonna throw up on my keyboard. I don't know what kind of demon at Infinity Ward thought this was a good idea, but really, shame on you for this. An extra shame for not bothering with a turn off head bob option either. Other than that, I'll also add that the PC version suffers from some performance issues issues that aren't as easily fixed. The game has some weird stuttering issues that I tried really hard to find fixes for. It made recording some footage pretty awful as well, and honestly, it resulted in me having to replay certain levels and mess around with the settings more than a handful of times. It's pretty trash because Ghosts is actually a pretty solid game otherwise, but I can't imagine having to deal with this kind of thing if I ended up playing the multiplayer or something. It would have been almost unplayable. So in closing, Call of Duty Ghosts has a surprisingly good campaign. I think the linearity is to be expected with the game, but it's hard to not like the constant action. It's par for the course of what you'd normally expect from a Call of Duty game. It's a cinematic spectacle with lots of moments that leave you at the edge of your seat. It sucks that there's always going to be the notoriously unresolved cliffhanger in the game, but if you can look past that for what it's worth, the rest of the campaign is still pretty fun and provides a lot of entertainment value. I think that some of the unresolved issues on PC are unfortunate, but what can you do? It's a shame it was never entirely fixed, but at least everything is still mostly playable. That being said, it's probably best to find a copy on console and try that if you're not keen on screwing around with settings to make things work optimally. But anyways, I'll end here by saying that I hope that we eventually get a follow-up to Call of Duty Ghosts. It's a shame to let the world that Infinity Ward built here go to waste because it's a fascinating title with more positives than negatives. Sadly, it's also one with some unresolved strings that still need some closure. Thank you all for watching. It was a pleasure to revisit Call of Duty Ghosts, and I had a blast making this one. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. We'll be back with more soon enough, so until next time, take care and peace out.